Terribly scenic, right? Now, doing vlog videos underneath a bridge in a sketchy area, it's not that sketchy. It's too damn expensive to live here for anything to be that sketchy. I came down here because this is the Cape Fear Memorial Bridge, and I've talked about this bridge before, right before I went out on the road. When your tires hit the grooves that go up when all the big ships come into the port, it makes this really distinct sound. You might be able to hear it. And it's always been my sound for when I've been on a long trip. I've been away for a while, from a couple weeks to a couple years, and the moment your tires hit and it makes that sound, you're just like, oh, I'm home. And so on days where I've just had a little bit too much, I will park underneath this bridge and just listen to that sound, because this is the only bridge that makes that noise. And I have had a little bit too much. This worthless purchase, right? 2020. Nobody wanted anything to do with me in 2020. Like, every page is pretty much empty, nothing. And then I passed my real estate exam, and boom, boom, everybody wants every ounce of my time. I have just been getting my ass kicked doing all these classes and post licensing and everything under the sun. The day before all these classes started, I went down to the beach. And I realized as I was sitting at the beach thinking, this is the last time I'm going to have nothing to do. I was sitting there and thinking about the dates, and I realized that the next day, which on that date it was September 27th, and September 28th was my first day at the TV station 12 years ago. That seems impossible. 12 years ago. And the day before I had started that job, I had also gone to the beach. I had just moved to Wilmington, and I was overwhelmed, and I went down to the beach early in the morning to like clear my brain, and I have this beautiful picture of the sunrise coming up, and 12 years ago it was shot on like a 2-megapixel camera. It was the most exciting thing. And 12 years later, I'm back at the beach the day before starting this whole new chapter, and I kind of took that as a little bit of a sign that here we are. And we're doing this exactly 12 years later. And then I was also thinking about quitting that job and everything that went on through there, and subsequently the start of this channel and all those adventures. And I realized that when I tell the story of how that happened, you know, it's a very romantic story. I sold all my things and quit my job and ran off into the sunset in a cargo van and then an RV and traveled all over the country, and it sounds like the story of the overnight sensation that actually took 10 years, right? Because that's the truth. And whenever we tell these stories, and when I tell the story, just for brevity, you flatten all the layers, and it creates this highly aspirational story about just throwing caution to the wind and riding off into the sunset in a cargo van. That leaves out the details that are actually of benefit to anyone who feels like they're in that exact same situation, or who wants to quit their job without a backup plan. Because what we tell people to do, right, is don't ever quit your job until you have another job. And that's smart. We don't want you to walk into months, days, years, however long, of unemployment and drill yourself into debt. Or poverty, worse. And so we encourage people to have this monkey bars attitude towards their careers, which is you hold on to this one until you have a firm grasp on the next one. And I didn't do that, and I broke the rules, and there were some details in that exempted me, or I felt exempted me from playing monkey bars, and instead I was holding on to the last monkey bar with my pinky and just flung myself into the air and hoped to God that I could catch the next thing without knowing what the next thing was. And sometimes when I look back at that decision, I'm like, damn, that was ballsy. It was ballsy. And if you've watched this channel for almost, we're about to hit, I think, our 2-year mark, you know that time since I let go with my pinky has been full of incredible adventures that I wouldn't have had otherwise, and it's also been full, especially this year, of incredible financial stress. And hopefully the next couple months and onward are coming out of that, but it's not been easy. So I wanted to fill in some of the blanks, the gaps, and the things that I did to let go, because not all of us will have a job or something perfect lined up. And while I would highly recommend that you do not leave your current employment unless you have another job, there are some scenarios that I think change all that. And the biggest one is your mental health. And I won't go into the whole story again, but when I do public speaking or talks or one-on-ones coaching with people about making that leap, the short version of how I explain it is that when my position was taken away from me and I knew I was either going to get fired or quit, and all my documentaries were gone and everything, my whole identity was that job. There was no line between Casey Roman and Casey Roman, the news reporter. They were one and the same. And so when that was taken away from me, I felt like I had no reason to exist. Like my whole meaning in the world was gone. And it got to a point where I felt like if I stayed in that job and did monkey bars, and I was doing the job interviews, I was doing everything I was supposed to do, and nothing was working out, but I felt like if I kept going and didn't let go, that I was not going to be around another year to see what happens. And I think y'all can fill in the blanks on that. I'm sure a lot of you have been there. It's a dark place to be in. And people on the outside will look at that and say, oh my God, it's just a job. It's just a job. Well, for everyone, it's not just a job. For me, it was my whole identity. It was my motivation. My reason for doing everything I did was to tell those stories, and then it was gone. So if my identity is gone, then why am I here? You have to create a new one. So your mental health, if that's where you're in, I'll say that no job on planet Earth, no job that will replace you like that is worth continuing on at the expense of your mental health, especially if it starts getting really serious. And there's a huge difference between I'm having a couple bad weeks at work and I can't see color anymore because I am completely depressed and I'm sick all the time and like this job is actually killing me. There's a wild difference, right? And it's usually defined by depth of condition and how long it endures. So that is, I would say that might be the only exclusion where it makes sense not to do the monkey bars thing. You know, if you are just so miserable that you cannot go on, and then at that point, for the preservation of your life, you let go. And also you have to let go. You know, most people never let go, and I'd say that is the other side of the coin, is that the strict majority of people hold on so tightly to the first monkey bar that they'll like kind of reach, and then they'll grasp back on this one, and they won't let go. And then you hear these people, I'll tell you what, in an RV park, you live enough in an RV park, and you hear this story again and again of people who worked at jobs that they hated their entire life and saved up all their money, and they banked everything on the age of 65 because at 65 they were going to go off and live their life. And those RV parks where I live are filled with people that have that story, and they're all over the country. And the part of that story that nobody tells you at age 45, 35, 25 is that when they get to 65, they don't have the energy that they once had. They don't have the money that they thought they would have. Life has intervened. There have been financial hiccups. Their children have needed them. They have grandkids that they want to see. So they endured through their most vibrant years, their best working years, at some place that they hated, placing a gamble that somehow at 65 the gates of life would just open up and they would start living their best life. And it doesn't happen like that. Maybe for a couple people it does, but I can tell you that I live around an awful lot of people who thought that paying their dues in that company, in that job all those years ago was going to have a different outcome, and now they're not traveling, or they can't afford the RV. It's a burden. They, you know, their husband's in and out of the hospital, their wife is sick, whatever it is. So I'm going to encourage you to do the smart financial thing and not jump into the abyss. But I also think that at some point you have to let go of the monkey bar. And so this is more for the people who are letting go of the monkey bar. And either you're just gonna go straight into trying to start your own business, you're gonna make work looking for a new job, your full-time job, or you are just in a mental health state where you have to get out of there and you're just gonna put a lot of faith in whatever your higher power is and do the damn thing, which is what I did. And you've all seen that it's been a very bumpy ride. The first thing is, it did not happen nearly, oh God, there's a Wilmington Police Department officer. If he stops me and sees me doing this, he'll never let me live this down. Okay, we might have to speed this up. I don't need to listen to that lip. The first thing I'll say is that it wasn't like I, lost everything that was of value to me in my career and then I went and quit. I mean, I think we all envision and dream about that we're going to go into our boss's office and tell him to and then walk out in this blaze of glory, and it wasn't like that. That's how I thought it would be, and that's not how it was like. It actually took a solid year. On Halloween, which is we're almost on that anniversary, on Halloween I shot the last piece of video for 24-Hour PD, which was ultimately the documentary that sealed the deal on ending my career. And then on November 30th, or Thanksgiving night, I worked Thanksgiving. I didn't have to, but I was so excited about this story, 24-Hour PD. I worked all day Thanksgiving writing the script, and I hammered out 4 perfect 30-minute scripts, this whole series, and I was so excited. And I emailed it to my news director at 7 p.m., thinking that he'd be eating Thanksgiving dinner and like we would revisit this at another time. And I packed up my bags and I was just feeling like so strong about this body of work that I just made. And as I'm walking out the door, my phone pings, and that was the email that said that they would not be airing it. It would never see the light of TV. It's just going on the website, and it's too long. That was the excuse. It was too long. The real excuse is that it didn't show officers in a bad light, and so I didn't win any bonus prizes. And that was it. Thanksgiving that night, that was the straw that broke the Ginger Ninja's back. I'd been years of fighting with him in the station, and I couldn't do it anymore. I had fought so hard for that story to come to life, and now it was never going to see TV. It was just going to be on the internet, and I was done. And it was like someone flipped a switch, and I was done. And I knew I was done, but I didn't quit right away. So here's the thing. It took over a year from that point because I had to be very tactical about it. You just walk in your job and quit, the bottom falls out from underneath you. But I'm going to tell you what I did so that I at least had some systems in place. Number one, you have to create financial runway. If you just quit, then your income goes away. Now, when I knew that I was going to quit, from that moment on, I knew that I had to sell my house. I have encouraged you heavily on this channel, especially if you're going to travel full time, not to sell your house, to rent out your house, to turn it into an asset, to make money off of it when you don't have income. However, my house was a totally different ball game. 110 years old, constant maintenance, and I had just finished renovating it, so it was at its peak value at that time, and the real estate market was great. So I knew that it made sense to sell, and I also knew that if I didn't have a renter in there, I couldn't carry that mortgage. So that created my financial runway. Selling my house was how I created my financial runway. The proceeds of that sale were what I was going to extend the amount of time to cover all my fixed costs until I could start working again. And for me, it just worked out that I created a YouTube channel, and we've got this great community and Patreon, and I didn't have to touch that runway. But I established it, I built it and created it. It was very intentional. So if you hear a story, we love these stories about they only had $5 in their pocket and they still made it happen. Tony Robbins, famous motivational speaker, love his content, but he likes to tell the story that he only had a couple bucks in his pocket. He gave it to some little boy to take his mom out to dinner, and then magically he became a millionaire. He condenses the story. There's a lot in there that he's left out. And so I'll tell you that I had to create that runway, and you will have to create that runway. you will have to have a substantial amount of savings to be able to walk away from employment full time. I don't make it your plan that you're going to go sign up for a bunch of government services. That is not finding freedom. Your whole goal here is to find freedom from a job that you hate. Well, shackling yourself up to the United States government just to be able to pay your bills is not financial freedom. It's not personal freedom. It's not any kind of freedom. It's dependence. And you are doing this so you can have independence. So you have to build your runway. Whether you need to work a second job, you need to create a side hustle, you need to come up with a business that you start running. Now, if you stay in your job and you hold on to both monkey bars, that job can sort of start to build the runway on this. But again, I'm talking about people like me who are bold enough, crazy enough, whatever, to fully let go and without having a backup plan. Build your runway. Number 2, you've got to figure out your health insurance. I can't think of any system that might be more regrettable than the United States coming up with employer-sponsored health care, because all it has done is tied people to their jobs. People will take a lesser paying job, take a pay cut to get away from a bad job way before they will ever take a job that doesn't have health care, because their health care is tied to their employer. So they stay with an employer in a job that they don't like, that they don't want, because they have a family, they have kids, someone in the family is sick, and they have to have the health care. And so they stay. Or they take a job that they don't want because it has great health care. It's such a sad way of living. I had phenomenal health care with the TV station. I could go in to get my teeth cleaned, and I'd be like, you know what, while I'm here, just give me a prostate exam, because I know it's covered. I'll take one of those. And you know what, for my friend down the hall too. It was great. We were self-insured, so a lot of years we got money back. When I started looking at private healthcare plans, and we will do an update on healthcare for people who are kind of off-grid soon. I've just got to get the interview scheduled. I was shocked. I was horrified at what private health care costs. And I am super healthy. I don't have any pre-existing conditions. I'm not on any medicines. It was abysmal. Bad. So eventually I figured it out. I pay $335 now. I will update that video about how to get affordable health insurance if you're healthy. But I intentionally delayed my quit date by a year, so I had the time to build the financial runway, to figure out my health insurance. Plus, you can't get on the market, the exchanges, until November. So if I had just, walked off in June, then I would have to find temporary emergency health care, which is not what I wanted. So I was very deliberate about it. So yeah, I quit my job and didn't have a backup plan, but that whole thing was a year in progress. Build the runway, wait till the exchanges are open, use the time before the exchanges to research all my options, find the one right for me, get that set up before I quit, okay? And then there were other expenses. For 10 years, I had a company cell phone. You're not supposed to use it for personal things, but I used it for all my personal things. I didn't care. I had no idea what a cell phone cost. I nearly fainted in the Verizon store when someone told me that a smartphone was $1,000. I had no idea. Cell phone plan, used my employer's. No clue that it was that much money. So I had to go through the process. Now, for 10 years, people were using that cell phone number. So I had to build out all my contacts, take the contacts out of my phone. I mean, it is just amazing. When you are in a company for so long, it's almost like getting a divorce. It really is. So that was another cost. And then other costs, I had always used the company's printer. I had to come up with that. Any other benefits that we had, my IRA, you have to come up with a rollover plan for your IRA. And so I could go on the list of all the things that had to be separated. The point is, the most important thing is that while I knew I was quitting on Thanksgiving night, it took a year and 1 month for me to actually do it. And so that's the true story. And I want you to know that, because in that year, a little bit more than a year, I was absolutely miserable. And it felt like suffering, but I knew I had to endure that in order to have the right systems in place so that I could walk away and not be screwed. And apparently the military is going to do flyovers right now. You live near a military base, that's what's going to happen. So think about that. I know you want to quit right now, but in reality, to do this smart, you have to Give yourself some time. And if you need some kind of mental exercise to go through, every day that you're going to that job that you hate, just say, this is all, I'm doing this, I'm showing up today, I'm doing this to get that runway, I'm going to call the healthcare companies, I'm going to call the cell phone companies, I'm going to do all this because I am slowly unwinding this when they don't even know. I mean, I didn't tell my boss that I was quitting until about October. And he just stared at me because he couldn't believe that I was going to walk away from a solid paycheck and great benefits and have no backup plan. So let's talk about some of the emotional consequences of quitting your job and not having a backup plan. When people are quitting a job and going to get a better job or a promotion, everybody is celebrating with them. And so it's exciting and you're rejoicing with them. With me, I joked with the people in my office suite that it wasn't a suite, it was a closet, let's be real. That everyone was treating me like I was the Labrador retriever of the family that was about to be put down and didn't know it. I mean, people walked up to me and like their voice lowered and they were like, so I heard you were leaving. I'm like, yeah, I'm not terminally ill. I mean, I'm making this decision consciously, but nobody knew what to do or say because like who the hell quits a career that I had been wildly successful in, that I had great name recognition and respect in this community for doing, and then I was leaving to go live in a cargo van? I mean, people talk to me like I was crazy. You need to be aware of that because if you do that, it's a very awkward, uncomfortable thing. The word is almost shame, but it's mostly embarrassment because they kind of want to talk you out of it. You don't have any big plans. So you're just going to go be unemployed. And if you think that that's not going to affect your self-esteem, I'll tell you that I have a backbone made of steel and it hurt. It hurt. No one was excited for me. They pitied me. And pity is not a thing that I like to live in. After I quit, and on the day I quit, I thought it would be this victorious, amazing thing, like I'm done, I'm free, go to hell, find your own stories, win your own awards, and it was sad. I mean, I cleaned out the last of my belongings and walked out the door. It was New Year's Eve, and so not many people were working, and that was it. It was the most anticlimactic end of what I considered a personal era, and that was it. That also tells you how much you mean to your employer, right? You know, they don't care. They'll replace you with someone younger and cheaper in a heartbeat. After I quit, and this is very common with people who leave and are unemployed, is that your whole social structure of the day is gone. You're so used to that routine. You hate getting up early every morning, but by 9 o'clock you're interacting with people. Even if you don't love your coworkers, you're used to their mannerisms. You joke with them, you talk shit at the water cooler. You have all that interaction. And I'll be honest with you, my strongest relationships were built at work. I mean, my best friends, we struggled together, we made no money together, we went to breaking news together, and then that structure's gone. And so you go through a period of 2 weeks or more where you're sleeping in every day and you don't really care and you think this is the greatest thing in the world that you can walk around with pajamas on all the time, kind of like coronavirus. But your interaction with people is gone. You're not there for the updates. You're not there for the jokes. You're not there for anything. And so everything with them continues and you're not there to participate. And so every time I'd hear the fire engines go by or the cop cars blazing, I'd be like, oh, like I wonder is there breaking news? And I didn't want to call. Like now I'm not a part of it anymore. And they don't call, and they still don't know what to make of you and your decisions. And so you will experience a strong degree of isolation that you're not accustomed to. It's kind of like coronavirus, but worse, because you have no plan. There's nothing. So really the van kind of saved the day for me because every day I could get up and just pour myself into building that van conversion and plotting my trip. If I didn't have that, I would have gone nuts. I probably would have taken another job that paid me nothing and treated me like garbage just to run away. And nobody should take a runaway job. A runaway job is just a job you take to have a job, and it doesn't matter if you like it. You know, if you want a really strong exercise in all of this, count your life backwards. Take the time you think you're going to retire or the expected life expectancy and count backwards. How many more Christmas parties do you have at the office? How many more, if we know it takes years and years to build a successful business, how much time do you have to make that happen? Are you in your peak working years, or are you at the end? If you look at things backwards, then you see that you actually don't have a lot of time. And that freaked me out so bad that I couldn't stand it, and I let go of that monkey bar. I'd given 10 years to this company. I was so proud of the work that I did. I would have done it for the rest of my life if they had given me the space to do it. But plan A wasn't an option anymore. It was just plan B, and plan B sucked. Plan B was going chasing ambulances. One of my assignments in my last year was I was told to go stand at the pier at the ocean and just stand there with my camera in the blazing heat of summer and wait for someone to nearly drown in a rip current and get that video. Deliberately not render aid, get the video of someone almost drowning, because it would be really compelling video. And hopefully they didn't drown, but if they did, then I got a drowning on camera. I mean, that was the level that we were at. That's the level of news these days. So to me, when I counted my life backwards, when I looked at, this amount of time has passed already, and my dream job is gone, I have got to get going. I cannot spend another day in this going nowhere career. I've got to force myself to get to the next thing. And some of you probably feel like you're there, and I get it. But spending years and years and years is also not the answer. The person I didn't want to be, and the person I hope that you will never be, is when you hear people talk about their career and they say, yeah, and then 25 years later you look back and you're like, wow, where did all the time go? Hell no. I don't ever want to look back. I want to always be looking forward at the next cool thing that I'm going to be doing. I don't want to just say like 25 years passed and, oh yeah, it went into all those morning meetings that I spent my life in at a job I didn't like. What way of living is that? That's not going to be a fun story to read at my funeral, even though I'm going to outlive all my friends. They have children, so of course I'm going to outlive them. They're going to die of stress. But you should never look back, because that means that all that time passed and you weren't paying attention. You weren't fully locked in. You weren't engaged. You weren't involved. You were just coasting. You were just getting from one company Christmas party to the next. And I don't want that, and I don't want that for you. So those are just some of the things that I had to go through in doing this. And really the big thing I want to hammer home was that I always tell that story very condensed. But yes, it was over a year of planning and plotting and making sure. I deliberately chose December 31st for tax reasons and insurance reasons, because new insurance plans start on the 1st and tax seasons start on the 1st, and so it was the cleanest cut I could make. And the 365 plus days before that, I wanted to quit and tell management to go to hell every single day, but I just had to keep my eye on the prize, that if I could make it to December 31st, I had the runway, I had the health insurance, I had my own phone and my own phone number. I knew how to print things out without going to the company printer. I stopped stealing toilet paper from the stock cabinet in HR. And I had everything ready, so at least I could live long enough without having to get a runaway job. And instead I ran away and traveled. And now I'm starting this whole new career. And hopefully y'all will stick around for that adventure. It's not the adventure that we've been on, but you damn well know that I will find a way to make running around these old historic mansions in Wilmington entertaining and probably slightly inappropriate. But that's the thing that we're doing. So if you're there, I get it. And if it's a mental health thing, I'd encourage you to let go, because the fear of the unknown is nowhere near as scary as the fear of looking back and seeing all that time pass and knowing that you gave it to a job, a company, a boss, whoever it is, that didn't respect your time on this planet. Okay? Everyone on this channel, I respect your time on this planet. This community we have here respects your time on this planet. So you owe it to yourself. There's a quote, and I usually don't like throwing out quotes, and this sun is kind of like killing me. But the quote is that you are the only person that you will have to spend your entire life with. So you owe it to yourself to be as interesting as possible. And that is a huge driver for me when I'm making decisions. And I think about when I'm all the way at the end, when they're reading my obituary or what have you, I want all the chapters to be interesting. And this year, 2020, has not been a fun chapter. It's been horrible for most of us. But I'd like to think that at the end of 2020, I've now started this whole new thing where now my planner is filling up. I've got all these houses that I'm going to get to run around in. I'll be of service to this community again, and hopefully that will replenish the money so that I can start traveling again. I'm dying to go abroad. So new dreams, new goals, all that. But you're not going to be able to do all that if you're in a job where every day you're just hoping that you get sick the night before so you can take a sick day and not show up, right? All right. If you've ever quit your job and done the thing and have some additional tips, I hope you'll also share those below. It's just too short, everybody. It is just too damn short to spend it on doing anything else than what is a hell yeah, right? All right, weirdos, go do the damn thing. I'll see y'all later.